Yo, YouTube, we're back. Chapter 19. We're gonna use the reader again. Probably do maybe another 3 chapters, 19, 20, and 21. So let's just get into it. So I'm gonna click it and hopefully get it started.
The last time she had made use of her art, it was in order to defeat sin. A picture appeared in her mind. A strange group was walking in a forest. The forest of Pset. 2 bedols were holding 2 long poles which were supporting a plate on which was seated a woman with elegant clothes. Her thin hood let catch a glimpse of her black and bright hair. Kush. A soldier was leading the way. An armor made of leather was covering his half-naked back, a sword was hanging on his hip. A guardian? Kush turned round, apparently surprised, and the setting of the vision changed. Yuna was seeing a little circular room. A spiral staircase was standing in the middle of the room, and the rim was almost entirely composed of windows. Inside the vision, Yuna came closer to them and discovered a cove through the panes. The young woman was overlooking the landscape. She recognized the port of Pset, only the pontoon was missing. On the floor, several cushions were carefully stacked near a wood bowl filled with dried fruits and walnuts. She was feeling the sweet and bitter savors coming from it. Our senses are in unison. Suddenly, an atrocious pain hurt her chest. She was submerged by hatred, and by a so powerful love that it appeared to want to spring out of the pores of her skin. She was trapped by a storm of feelings. A kick in the bowl, and the fruit scattered in the room. "Stop," a masculine voice ordered, old and hoarse, inside Yuna's mind. "Where are you?" Yuna asked. "I accept to meet you, but on one condition. Accord me a favor. We will do our best." My request can definitely be carried out, but the young man would achieve it more easily. I will tell him. What is it about? After a silence, the voice answered, killing a young girl.
So that was chapter 19. Here's chapter 20.
Chapter 20. Night fell, and Priya was walking around the Sade. He walked along the coast despite the boulders which were making the progression difficult, explored inaccessible caves and parts of the forest where nobody has ever gone before. He did not see anywhere the monstrous monk Lulu had told him about. As a rule, he let them rest in peace. But there were 2 former guardians in the village, and those persons could draw decaying spirits out. The situation would be even more complicated if Yuna and Titus were present. He wanted to solve this problem before their return. He was coming closer to the hill. The navel of the night was shining in the sky. The navel of the night, not Endless Eye. The woman he had told that the star was called Endless Eye had been so fond of this name that she had named her little tavern that she inherited from her parents, after it. On the verge of bankruptcy, she had bet that it would have brought her luck. She lost that bet. Several warrior monks had come to fetch her to take her to the fortress of Bavel. She was 8 months pregnant that day. She had never come back. A short time later, a warrior had come back to the tavern with a wood box containing a newborn who would not stop crying, Brian's daughter. His wife had suffered 1,000 tortures and, just before dying, had given birth to this child. The Meisters of Yevon wanted to know where she had heard of the name Endless Eye, and would stop at nothing to find out. Until the end, she had protected Bria. The warrior who had brought the child to him had offered his condolences, then had recommended him to run away. He had told him his family owned an inn on the edge of Macalania Lake and was looking for a handyman. The warrior was named Jekka. Bria had taken an interest in the origin of his name, and Jekka had glanced at him askance before telling him it originated from a famed ancestor. Bria did not know why he had asked this question. Likewise, he did not understand how Anlisa had come to his mind. To this day, he was still ignoring that. Thanks to the recommendation of Jekka, Bria obtained a job at Macalania Lake. The mother of the innkeeper took care of the infant. Bria had named her Lutra. The name came to his mind instantaneously, and he had not managed to find another one thereafter. But this name had posed a problem too. One day, when the child was almost 5 years old, a monk had come from the temple of Macalania to ask some questions. Bria feared for his safety, but the innkeeper, who was a long-standing friend, interceded. Instead of sending a report to Bavel, the monk demanded that Bria change the name of the child. Bria was incapable of finding another name. He was convinced that, whatever he chose, it would bring misfortune to his daughter. In the end, the monk in question and the old woman who took care of her decided to name her Mora. Bria found this name banal, but he hoped that it would provide a peaceful life to her child. When Mora was 20, she was proposed to by a man. In the course of his visits, this regular customer had fallen in love with the young girl. She felt affection for the man too, and the union was encouraged. As long as her daughter agreed, Bria had no reason for being opposed to it. In order to explain the absence of her wife, he affirmed that she died because of a disease. The banquet took place in the huge room of the inn. Many friends of the groom came and went into ecstatics in the face of the beauty of the bride, who was wearing wonderful wedding garb. In the corner of the room, Bria was observing his daughter. He was torn between joy and sadness. "You bastard," the father of the groom had suddenly shouted. He had come from Bavel for the occasion, and Bria still remembered his voice and his breath which reeked of alcohol. "It's you who killed Mara." The man told the audience how Bria had duped the woman in Bavel, had meddled with their family, and had managed to change the name of the establishment, which had caused the death of the lady, Mara. In the past, the man was a regular customer, and after the departure of Bria and his daughter, he had heard of this rumor. Bria denied this. Some guests evoked the existence of a double, others thought it was just the delirium of a drunkard. But the man added, "You're fishy. It's been 20 years, and yet your life not changed. I've lost my hair and I've got a paunch, but what about you? Nothing. What are you? A monster? An unsent? For how long do you plan to stay in this world?" Mora burst into tears, and the innkeepers lowered their head. Bria had always contented himself with a modest job and avoided appearing in public as much as possible. He let his mustache grow, then shaved it, in order to give the illusion of change. But he did not age, and an attentive observer could not ignore it. Out of respect for the innkeepers, the neighbors had not said anything, but since her childhood, Mora found the situation hard to bear. Bria left. He could not talk with her anymore, but he kept watching over her. The marriage was cancelled. The next year, the mother of the innkeeper died. 3 years later, the owner of the establishment and his wife left for a trip. Along the way, they were attacked by Sin, and none saw them again. That is right, at this time, Sin came back. Against all odds, Mora took over the inn. but the reputation of the place had been affected, and there were less and less customers. Forced to close the inn, the young woman got rid of it, came back to Beauvais, and entered holy orders. Bria did not know what was inside the mind of his daughter and what was best for her. He had not the instinct of a father. He was not cut out for having a family. Mora led a long and fulfilling life. She rose in the ranks of the religious hierarchy, and when she passed away, at the age of 80, her obsequies were spectacular. Bria attended them from afar. He had not changed since her birth. By a cruel quirk of fate, he was incapable of remembering the face of his wife. He only remembered the words of their first conversation. Sitting down in a shabby tavern, he listened to the other customers, and that is how he learned that the daughter of the innkeeper was named Mara. She was a hard-working and conscientious young girl, moreover without specific charm. But Bria did not care about that, and he came back to see her, day after day, attracted by her name. He had the impression that this word contained the key to a secret buried in the depths of himself, why he did not age. His former life, that is before he met Mara, was bound to a mystery. As if his memory was nibbled by worms, composed of disjointed snatches. His 25 early years had been swallowed by a dark hole. He thought that if he managed to fill this gap of memory, he would be appeased and could finally die. As centuries passed, while he was feeling guilty because of what had happened with Mora and Mara, he kept believing that. How long has it been since the time? Maybe 1,000 years. Only fragments of memories remained in his mind. He spent most of his time as a warrior monk in Beauvais. As soon as a comrade noticed Bria did not age, he resigned and disappeared. He kept a low profile about 50 years, while waiting for those who knew him to die. Then we went back to military life, in Beauvais once again, because he thought he was closer to the key to the mystery over there. He was wrong. He must have had to come to Besaid much earlier. But this is not my first visit. Well, I don't think so. A memory of the Temple of Besaid came into his mind. At that time, there were only 2 high summoner statues. And that hill. He had climbed it so many times. The sculpture of a young teenage-like girl was standing on the side of the path. Bria closed his eyes. Only 2 high summoner statues. At that time, the one of the goddess had already disappeared. No, they are 2 different periods. But however hard he tried to search his memories, he could not learn anything else from them. Sometimes, days were so similar that it was difficult to remember the past. That was not the case for Bria. Someone had stolen his story. Who could be so maleficent? He decided to go back to the village to talk with the elders. They always narrated to him the same anecdotes, and Bria could recite their entire life by heart. They had led humble lives, in the shadow of the teachings of Yevon, but as days passed, Bria liked them more and more. Kuadajahek. Bria turned round and discovered beings with absurd faces. The one who had spoken was a blonde-haired boy, who was wearing big protective eyewear, whilst night had fallen. Beside him, a man with a wild look was exhibiting his torso and stomach, naked and tattooed with flames. Some friends of Yuna. Kuadajahek. The tattooed man greeted him in his turn, in Albed, indifferent. Bria trembled. Albed had renounced the teachings of Yevon, but that was not what caused his hatred. He hated their language. It reminded him of sadness and anger. He turned his back on them, waiting for them to leave. "Is he ignoring us?" the boy wearing glasses asked. Because we're just dirty Al bed. Rack music rec great, the tattooed man spat. Bria was feeling sick. Wait a minute, a feminine voice added. What are you doing, brother? Bria heard people approaching. Some friends of Yuna once again, he supposed. The girl who speaks loud and the calm and short-haired woman. His only wish at the moment was for them to quickly go on their way. This old man is disrespecting us, the boy wearing glasses answered. Bria turned round in order to apologize, but he found himself face to face with the tattooed man. The Albed was staring at him, scowling. He was so close that Bria could see the spirals in his eyes. Mind your manners, sickening Bidal, Bria exclaimed. He spit in the face of the tattooed man, who stepped backwards. The Albed seemed saddened. It was a joke, he protested on a pitiful tone. Bria stepped backwards in his turn. He was astounded by his words. Where did they come from? Probably from the place where Anlise, Latria and Mera were imprisoned. Big bro behaved badly, but that isn't a reason to spit in his face, a feminine voice said. Don't interfere, Riku, the boy wearing glasses answered. It was a joke, the tattooed man repeated.
The Guardian?
Our peaceful party comes to an end, a child's voice took it part. Bria turned his head. A false Bidal, he exclaimed. Under the influence of emotion, his sight became blurred. He did not know anymore what was standing in front of him. These glasses, this gas mask, this yellow suit, there was no doubt about it. Gunshots behind me. A Bidal in yellow, with a clumsy walk. Smoke is still escaping from the barrel of the rifle he is tightening under his left arm. I do not know how many bullets he has fired. Turning his nose up at the man wearing glasses and his tattooed comrade, disdaining the two women, he headed for the false Bidal. But his legs were so weak that he lost his balance. He held himself up as he could. He must have been appearing very clumsy in their eyes. To think that these subhumans were going to laugh at him. One of their people has killed me. Submerged by anger, he unsheathed his dagger. Are you serious? A voice exclaimed. The short-haired woman stood in his way and, with a kick, took his dagger away from him. She is not a Bidal, he thought, just as he received a blow on the back of his neck. He fell down. What are you talking about? The half-naked Bidal kneeled down and leaned on him. Under her slender muscles, we could barely make out her ribs. Bria suddenly felt a desire he had not experienced for a long time. Why, he exclaimed. For a Bidal? That's my question. They just greeted you. She leaned on him even more closely. FF-3, she let out with a scornful tone. Embarrassed, he turned away. He looked at the false Bidal, who was walking slowly towards him. You've been saying Bidal since our meeting. What is that? Don't come closer. Bria was about to lose consciousness. The Bidal slapped the woman. I have wanted to go for his throat, but Ifanel has held me back. Ifanel? A second slap, and Kush has opened her eyes.
So that's the end of chapter. It's kind of crazy to think that Albed and the Bedalls, the Bedalls are automated, cyborg robot type of metahumans, and it's kind of weird. It's interesting that Bria's an undead and unsent, and he doesn't remember anything. It's kind of like Mihen, where you live for so long you can't remember things. So he feels like it was stolen from him. this chapter really jumped between times, if you noticed. Like, I don't know if that scene of who killed, like, did a Badal killed Bria, and how he, like, always had to stay in secret hiding, while he never aged, so the people who knew him had to die off. And yeah, at first I thought he was strong, but, you know, one kick from Pain, he put him down. So I was kind of disappointed in that. I was kind of hoping he would put up more of a resistance. They wear the same type of clothes. They look kind of the same, except, you know, he's having flashbacks at this time, so everything to him isn't correct, like right. So he's trying to piece together when and what and how and where things happened and what time they happened, versus everyone else who's living in like the present. So it's just getting so good. I think I'll end it here. I do want to do the next chapter because it's so short, but I do want to save that because the next two chapters they're super short, 21 and 22, while 23, 20, actually they're all pretty short coming up, except for 25 and 26. So the second arc, I'm going to end at 28. So another couple days, we'll make our wrap-up video for arc 2 and then head into the final arc. I'm excited. I hope you are, because we're going to spur a lot of videos. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff in the future content of the channel. So I'm GK. Have a good day.